So I am in no way comparing Donald Trump to the great Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was one of the greatest icons and humanitarians of all time. But Muhammad Ali always came up with nicknames for his opponents. It was something that he did to hype the fight and sell tickets. So he called Joe Frazier the Gorilla, George Foreman was the Mummy, Floyd Patterson was the Rabbit, and Sonny Liston was the Big Ugly Bear. But when Muhammad Ali gave you a nickname, Muhammad Ali kicked your ass. When Donald Trump gives someone a nickname like Sleepy Joe, yeah, he goes to court and falls asleep. And our good buddy D Knight is going to be here again today talking about this because, folks, Donald Trump is just the gift that keeps on giving. Take it away, D.
Now, Sleepy Joe would say the unemployment rate in the great state of Ohio. Now, Sleepy Joe. The sad part about that, Sleepy Joe is right. You know the sad part about that? Sleepy Joe. In fact, one of the Democrats today said that it's a he, sleepy person.
Well, just to Rachel's point about the campaign dynamics, the optics of all this, and the sustained eye resting that apparently happened in the courtroom. I mean, I do feel like if you call your opponent Sleepy Joe, you have one job for the rest of the campaign, which is like you got to like clockwork orange those puppies like open at all times.
Hey, this is D Knight from the Part of the Insurrection podcast, joining you from Nashville, Tennessee, courtesy of none other than Tennessee Brando. If you've yet to hit the subscribe button, please go ahead and do that. You know you love watching this man's videos. Let's help that man get to 200,000 subscribers. We can do that. We can make that happen. And of course, today is the very first day of Trump's criminal hush money / election interference trial in Manhattan, New York. And Trump is having a very rough go of it. First of all, he started off the morning by attacking a witness in the trial, Michael Cohen. You're familiar with him by now. That is in violation, yet again, of his gag order. The judge is going to have a hearing on that sometime next week. And that's unfortunate that he's putting it off that long. That seems like something you might want to handle immediately. But what can you do? Also, the value of Trump's social media company, that thing is falling straight into the dumpster. It is falling so fast, it is almost as though a Russian pushed it out of a window. That thing is tanking hard. I think it's sitting somewhere in the mid-20s, like $26 per share or something as of closing. So much for that Trump and dump scheme. He gave it a good effort. And of course, it has been reported that Trump supposedly nodded off and fell asleep in the middle of the first day of his trial, the first trial of a former president in the history of the United States, something that could potentially determine not only his freedom, but the outcome of the 2024 election. And Trump can't even manage to stay awake for it.
Yeah, I have to ask, you guys have been, at the Times, have been live blogging this event. And 40 minutes ago, you wrote an observation that I was very surprised. Trump appears to be sleeping. His head keeps dropping down and his mouth goes slack. Tell us about that.
Well, Jake, he appeared to be asleep, and repeatedly his head would fall down. There have been other moments in other trials, like the Agent Carroll trial, which was around the corner in January, where he appeared very still and seemed as if he might be sleeping, but then he would move. This time, he didn't pay attention to a note that his lawyer, Todd Blanche, passed him. His jaw kept falling on his chest, and his mouth kept going slack. Now, sometimes people do fall asleep during court proceedings, but it's notable given the intensity of this morning and a lot of what was being argued.
Yeah, that's rather surprising. What was...
You may or may not have seen references to a nickname floating around the interwebs here, Don Snorleone. Yeah, that was brought to you by your boy, sitting right here, D Knight. You're welcome for that. That is my one contribution to society. I am satisfied with that if I do nothing else for the rest of my life. But obviously, just imagine a world where President Biden fell asleep during one of the most well-covered events in the history of the United States. Could you imagine? The media would be calling for his immediate resignation. They would be asking him to drop out of the 2024 presidential race. They'd be suggesting that his cabinet invoke the 25th Amendment and have him removed from office. But, of course, because it's Donald Trump, we have a good laugh about it, and the media moves on. Nothing ever sticks to this man, but, that's another video for another time. Of course it is. But Obviously, there are more occurrences during the course of the day, with Trump's other lawyer, Alina Habba, alluding to an idea, well, not even alluding to, openly suggesting that the jury selection process is rigged, a process that maybe Trump should have stayed awake for. I don't know. Perhaps that's a suggestion.
We wanted to protect him and destroy this person's life, right? Protect this person and destroy this person's life. And if you're going to go to trial in New York, I mean, what are the chances of that with Trump?
You know what happened to me. So, the truth is these jurors are human beings. They have biases. And what was troubling in this case is that while we're doing jury selection starting today, one of the things that the judge here, Judge Mershon, would not allow us to ask was whether or not they voted for a Republican or a Democrat, whether or not they voted for President Trump, whether or not they work for the Biden administration. There's people that when I was doing the jury selection in the Carroll case, we're working currently for the Biden campaign. And I didn't want those people sitting on a jury for President Trump. And but you have the right to ask those questions. Now, this judge has eliminated many of those questions. You're not allowed to ask who they voted for. You can ask what news they watch. But I watch CNN and I watch Fox because I like to know what my opposition's saying. So it doesn't tell you what the status is. Now, when you're sitting with a president and a current nominee for the GOP, and you can't ask how you vote, you're shot in the foot right there. And you're in New York, which is a predominantly blue state. So, that hindrance in itself is problematic just from the get-go.
I just want to really pin, I know we're short of time, but I really want to pin this down. You're telling me that the judge would allow somebody who's actively working for Joe Biden's presidential campaign to be on this jury pool?
Well, that happened to me. I mean, of course. Of course. I had arguments with the judge about it and saying, I wanted this person out, and I got them off the jury pool, but it was tough. The judge said, well, if you, I will never forget it. If you'd have it your way, you'd have all Republicans. I said, well, I'm his lawyer, of course.
That is actually completely untrue. You cannot ask a jury to disclose who they voted for in an election. And regardless, who you vote for is not necessarily indicative of whether or not you can be fair and unbiased over the course of a criminal trial. That's two separate issues. But the voir dire process in this instance is very thorough. It's one of the longest jury questionnaires I've ever seen. And it asks various questions like, have you ever served on the Trump campaign or the Biden campaign, or where you get your news from, or a number of things. Have you ever been affiliated or joined groups like the Proud Boys, Three Percenters, etc.? It even threw in Antifa. Even threw in Antifa. But of course, this is an attempt by Trump's lawyers possibly to set up an appeal. But again, if you were allowed to ask jurors who they voted for, then that would easily be appealed and any conviction would likely be overturned. Shame on Alina Habba. But of course, we also had Donald Trump here, presuming to question the fairness of the judge.
So thank you very much. We had some amazing things happen today. As you know, my son is graduating from high school, and it looks like the judge will not let me go through the graduation of my son, who's worked very, very hard. He's a great student. He's very proud of the fact that he did so well. And I was looking forward for years to have graduation with his mother and father there. And it looks like the judge isn't going to allow me to escape this scam. It's a scam trial.
That, too, is completely not factual, as the judge has yet to rule whether or not Trump will be allowed to attend his son Barron's high school graduation. And unlike Trump there, I actually know his son's name. And the judge has said that he will wait until they're closer to the date to make that determination. And even if he does allow Trump to go, Trump complaining about not being able to attend his son's graduation is rich, because he doesn't want a single juror to know about his whereabouts when his wife was pregnant with Barron. So, empty complaint on Trump's part. I don't even know what kind of argument he's making here. He just railing against something he was never going to do, as per the usual, I suppose. Trump also had other complaints about events he was likely to miss thanks to his criminal trial.
So I just want to thank you very much, but that I can't go to my son's graduation, or that I can't go to the United States Supreme Court, that I'm not in Georgia or Florida or North Carolina campaigning like I should be. It's perfect for the radical left Democrats. That's exactly what they want.
You were not afforded the right to campaign in lieu of attending your criminal trial. I don't know what law book he read. Maybe he went to the law school of Alina Habba, who cost him hundreds of millions of dollars in a civil fraud trial, as well as a rape/defamation trial. But here's more legal analysis from one Alina Habba.
No, not even allowing a person due process, the right to go sit in front of the Supreme Court and hear a case that determines many lawsuits that are currently against President Trump on immunity, on grounds for immunity.
That is patently ridiculous, as Trump has received his due process in front of a number of lower courts. Also, parties typically aren't present during oral arguments in front of the Supreme Court, as noted by the fact that Trump has never once attended oral arguments before the Supreme Court, despite having a number of cases before them over the years. I don't know why they make this shit up, and I don't know why Fox News continues to run with it, but that's what you have us guys for, to point out how insane and or hypocritical a lot of these arguments tend to be. Also, 3 days ago, Trump sent out a fundraising email saying 72 hours until all hell breaks loose, reminiscent of his "Be There, Will Be Wild" / "Stand Back and Stand By," seemingly a call to his followers to show up in Manhattan in support of him, likely to engage in mob-like behavior, but much to Trump's disappointment, I would imagine, maybe 150 people showed up, and that quickly whittled down to about 50 random dudes who managed to crawl out of their mother's basement and show up to send Trump their support. But I guess one takeaway from that is DOJ's expenditure of resources in rounding up a number of the individuals involved in the January 6th attack on the Capitol. That's been a successful deterrent, as we've yet to see any outburst of violence by Trump's mobs since he's been indicted in multiple occasions and perp walked in different jurisdictions, and now his criminal trial. So an effective deterrent in that sense. I personally would have preferred maybe the Justice Department spend a little bit more time and energy and effort and resources in investigating individuals higher up the food chain earlier in the process. But hey, look, we've successfully managed to stop Trump's mob from engaging in mass violence. So mission accomplished in that regard, and maybe we can hold Trump accountable for that as well. But I know a lot of you have been waiting for a moment like this, where law enforcement and the criminal justice system is finally holding Trump accountable for at least one of his crimes. And we're here now. A lot of people were skeptical about the idea that we would ever get to this place. We made it. So make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, of course, if you have not already. Please hit the thumbs up button. Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy this content, you can find me on my personal podcast, Pardon the Insurrection, available now on YouTube, as well as everywhere else that podcasts are found.
So once again, I want to thank my good buddy D Knight for sharing his videos with us. And folks, if you enjoyed that video, go over to his channel. It is Pardon the Insurrection Podcast. Be sure to give him a follow. He's one of my favorite voices out there, and I know that he and I are going to stay busy as long as Donald Trump's out there. We text back and forth from time to time like, man, who's going to take this one? I'm like, let's both take it, man. Everybody take it. Everybody grab the microphone and everybody lay into Donald Trump, because that's what it's going to take to send him packing once and for all.